My fiancé thought it would be funny to invite my high school bully to our wedding as a prank, but I wasn't joking when I canceled it right in front of him. I should have been on my honeymoon in Greece right now. Instead, I'm sitting in my apartment trying to figure out where everything went wrong. Duncan and I had been together for 3 years. The relationship was solid. We rarely fought. He was funny, supportive, and I genuinely thought he was the one. There was just one thing. Duncan loved pranks. Lived for them. 6 months into dating, he tried pulling one on me, and I shut it down immediately. We had this massive fight because I told him, pranks trigger me. They bring back horrible memories. That's when I told him about Nathan. Nathan was my high school bully, not the typical mean kid who made fun of your clothes. Nathan was calculated. He spread a rumor that I cheated on a major exam, which got me kicked off the debate team my junior year. He convinced people I was a liar, made my life so miserable that my parents pulled me out and enrolled me in a different school for senior year. I told Duncan all of this. He went quiet, then apologized, said he had no idea and promised he'd never prank me again. That was 2.5 years ago. He kept his word. I thought we'd moved past it. Fast forward to our wedding day. Everything was perfect. Small ceremony, 90 guests. My parents had dropped $15,000 on the venue and catering. I was in the bridal suite with my mom 30 minutes from walking down the aisle. Then my maid of honor, Eloise, texted me. No words, just a photo. Nathan standing at the entrance of our venue wearing a suit, holding a gift. I felt like I couldn't breathe. My hands started shaking. I showed my mom and she looked confused. Who is that? I ran out in my wedding dress, found Duncan laughing with his groomsmen near the bar. When he saw me, his face lit up. Babe, did you see? I found him. I tracked Nathan down on Facebook. Thought it would be hilarious to see your reaction. I couldn't speak. He kept going. Come on, it's funny. Look how shocked you are. This is gold. I asked if anyone else knew. He said, yeah, my groomsmen helped plan it. They've been working on this for 2 months. Eloise had given him Nathan's contact info, thinking it was for a surprise reunion thing. She had no idea about the bullying. 2 months. That's when it hit me. 2 months ago, I'd opened up to Duncan about my therapy sessions, about how Nathan's bullying had given me anxiety attacks that I still deal with at 28 years old, how I'd just started feeling safe in social situations again, how much work it took to get there. He'd sat there, held my hand, listened to me cry about my trauma, then used that information to plan a prank for our wedding day. I looked around at the 90 guests already seated, at the string quartet warming up, at my dad in his tux, waiting to walk me down the aisle, at the photographer who'd already started shooting getting ready photos, at my fiancé, still grinning like this was the funniest thing he'd ever done. I walked over to where the microphone was set up for the ceremony, tapped it twice. The room went silent. The wedding's canceled. If you think traumatizing your partner for a laugh is funny, you can leave with Duncan. Everyone else, there's an open bar that's already paid for. My mom gasped. Duncan's face went white. He started walking toward me, saying, babe, come on, don't be like this. I kept talking. My fiancé invited the person who bullied me so badly I had to switch schools. He did this after I explicitly told him about my trauma, after I begged him never to prank me. So no, I'm not being dramatic. I'm done. I walked out through the side exit. My parents followed immediately. Then my 2 brothers, then my college friends who knew the whole Nathan story. Then Duncan's own grandmother, who I heard mutter, I didn't raise him to be cruel. 38 people walked out with me. That evening I got an email from Duncan's therapist, Dr. Westwood, CCing Duncan. Disappointed you couldn't complete the exposure exercise we planned. Duncan has worked hard to help you process your victim mentality. I felt sick. Duncan had told me Dr. Westwood helped his dad fix his mom's anxiety in the 90s. She'd been the family therapist for 20 years, teaching men to strengthen wives through controlled stress. My phone buzzed. A calendar invite from Dr. Westwood for an emergency couples session tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Required attendance. Then another text from Duncan. Dr. Westwood says if you don't show up, it proves everything, and I'm forwarding her clinical assessment to your family so they understand what I've been dealing with. I stared at that text for a solid 15 minutes. I was still in my wedding dress, sitting on my parents' couch, tulle everywhere like some kind of depressing art installation. My mom was in the kitchen doing that thing where she pretends to clean when she's actually just trying not to cry. My dad kept walking from the living room to the kitchen and back, muttering about vendor contracts and non-refundable deposits. I didn't respond to Duncan. Honestly, what was I supposed to say? But then my email dinged again. Another message from Dr. Westwood. This time when I saw the CC list, my stomach literally dropped. My parents, Duncan's parents, my older brother, Duncan's sister, Eloise, even my aunt who'd flown in from Seattle for the wedding. The subject line read, clinical assessment, urgent family review required. I opened it even though every part of me knew I shouldn't. The email was 3 long paragraphs written in that professional therapeutic language that sounds smart but is basically just fancy manipulation. She wrote that I exhibited clear signs of borderline personality disorder. She cited my canceling the wedding as evidence of emotional dysregulation, black and white thinking, and extreme fear of abandonment manifesting as preemptive rejection. She said Duncan had been expressing concerns about my mental health for several months, and that my reaction to what she called a harmless social reintegration exercise confirmed his observations. She recommended immediate psychiatric evaluation and said my family should be aware that I might pose a risk to myself during this crisis period. I read it twice, then a third time. This woman had never met me, never spoken to me, never seen me in any professional capacity, and she was sending a diagnosis of a serious personality disorder to my entire family based on the fact that I didn't want my high school bully at my wedding. My phone rang. My mom. I picked up. Honey, she said, and I could hear that tone, that careful, walking on eggshells tone people use when they think you might shatter. I just got an email from Duncan's therapist. Yeah, Mom, I know. I got it too. There was a pause. She seems really concerned about you, sweetheart. She's been doing this for a long time. Maybe it wouldn't hurt to just talk to someone, a professional, just to, process everything that happened today. I felt like someone had dumped ice water over my head. Are you serious right now? I'm not saying she's right, my mom said quickly. I'm just saying canceling your wedding is a really big decision. And some of the things Dr. Westwood mentioned, the symptoms she listed, they're a little concerning, honey. I've noticed you've been different since you started therapy, more withdrawn, making big decisions without really talking them through. Mom, I canceled the wedding because Duncan invited the person who made my life hell in high school as a prank, after I explicitly told him never to do that. I know, baby, I know. But Dr. Westwood has been working with families for decades. She wouldn't just make something like this up. Maybe she's seeing something we're all missing. That's when it hit me. Duncan wasn't just trying to manipulate me anymore. He was using this therapist to gaslight my entire family into thinking I was unstable. And it was working. I told my mom I needed to go and hung up. Then I just sat there staring at that calendar invite. Emergency couples session, 8 a.m. tomorrow, required attendance. Every single part of me wanted to delete it, block Duncan's number, and never think about any of this again. But something was bothering me. I needed to understand what Duncan actually believed. Like, did he genuinely think he was helping me? Or did he know exactly what he was doing and just didn't care? So I made a decision that was probably really stupid. I decided to go to the session. The next morning, I showed up at Dr. Westwood's office at 7:52 a.m. It was in one of those beige professional buildings where every floor looks identical and smells like carpet cleaner and stale coffee. Duncan was already in the waiting room when I walked in. He looked terrible, like he hadn't slept at all. His shirt was wrinkled and he had that hollow look people get when they've been crying for hours. When he saw me, he stood up so fast he knocked over the magazine he'd been pretending to read. "I knew you'd come," he said. His voice cracked a little. "I knew you'd want to work this out. We can fix this." I didn't say anything, just walked past him and sat down 3 chairs away. He hovered for a second like he was going to sit next to me, then seemed to think better of it and sat back down where he'd been. The waiting room was silent except for the sound of some instrumental music playing from a speaker in the ceiling. Duncan kept glancing at me. I could see him in my peripheral vision, opening his mouth like he was about to say something, then closing it again. At exactly 8 o'clock a.m., a door opened and Dr. Westwood appeared. She was probably in her mid-60s, wearing a cream-colored cardigan and those reading glasses on a chain that rest on your chest. She had that gentle grandma energy that probably made people trust her immediately. Come in, she said, smiling at both of us like we were there for a pleasant chat about vacation plans. I followed Duncan into her office. It was decorated in shades of lavender and cream, with bookshelves full of therapy books and framed credentials on the walls. There was a brown leather couch for clients and a matching armchair where Dr. Westwood sat. The whole place smelled like essential oils, that lavender scent that's supposed to be calming, but just makes me think of hotel lobbies. Before I sat down on the couch, I pulled out my phone, made a show of putting it on silent, then set it on the arm of the couch facing down, recording app already running. Duncan was too focused on Dr. Westwood to even notice. "Well," Dr. Westwood said, settling into her chair and crossing her legs, "I'm very glad you decided to attend today. That shows real maturity and openness to growth." I nodded but didn't say anything. She folded her hands in her lap and gave me this look that I guess was supposed to be compassionate. "Duncan has shared with me that yesterday was extremely difficult for both of you. I want you to understand that all the work we've been doing together has been focused entirely on supporting your healing process. Everything Duncan has done has come from a place of love and genuine concern for your well-being." "What work?" I asked. "I didn't know Duncan was seeing you." Duncan jumped in before Dr. Westwood could answer. "I've been coming here for a few months, just, getting some guidance on how to be a better partner, how to support you better with everything you've been dealing with." "How long is a few months?" He glanced at Dr. Westwood. She gave him this tiny, encouraging nod. 8 months, he said quietly. 8 months. I felt something cold settle into my chest. "You've been seeing a therapist about me for 8 months and never mentioned it?" "It wasn't about you," Duncan said, leaning forward. "It was about us, about our relationship, about how I could help you while you were working through your stuff in therapy." Dr. Westwood smiled like he'd just said something really insightful. "Duncan came to me shortly after you began seeing your own therapist. He was concerned that your treatment provider might be encouraging you to focus too heavily on past trauma, rather than building coping skills and moving forward. He wanted professional guidance on how to support you in a more balanced, productive way." I looked at Duncan, really looked at him. "You were worried my therapist was helping me too much?" "No, that's not what I meant." He was getting defensive now, that edge creeping into his voice. "I just thought maybe you were getting too stuck in the Nathan stuff. Like, that was 10 years ago. At some point, you need to let it go and move on. So you invited him to our wedding to help me let it go?" Dr. Westwood cut in smoothly. "What Duncan implemented yesterday was an exposure technique we had discussed in our sessions. Controlled exposure to past sources of trauma can be a highly effective tool for helping individuals process their fear responses and break patterns of avoidance. Your reaction, while completely understandable, does suggest that there's still significant work to be done in this area." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You told him to invite my bully to our wedding?" "I suggested that he create opportunities for you to confront what we'd identified as avoidance behaviors," she said, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. "Duncan chose the specific intervention based on his intimate knowledge of your relationship and your triggers. I think it showed real courage and commitment on his part." Duncan was nodding along. "I know it probably seemed harsh in the moment, but Dr. Westwood explained that sometimes people need a push to break through their barriers. Your boundaries about pranks, about certain social situations, about being visible online, those were all avoidance behaviors. forms of self-protection that were actually keeping you from healing. I was trying to help you move past them. I sat there looking at both of them. Duncan actually believed this. He genuinely thought he'd been rescuing me from myself, and this therapist had spent 8 months coaching him on how to do it. What else did you talk about in those 8 months? I asked, keeping my voice level. Duncan looked at Dr. Westwood like he needed permission to answer. She gave him another one of those little nods. Well, he started, fidgeting with his hands. I talked about how you were changing, how therapy was making you really independent. You weren't asking for my input on stuff anymore. You'd make these big decisions without even checking with me first, like when you decided to apply for that promotion at work, or when you planned that weekend trip to visit your college roommate. You just did it. And that was a problem? It wasn't a problem exactly, he said. It just felt like you were pulling away, like you didn't need me anymore. Dr. Westwood helped me understand that your therapist might be encouraging you to separate from me emotionally, to see our relationship as unhealthy when it wasn't. Dr. Westwood leaned forward. In my professional experience, some modern therapeutic approaches encourage what I call artificial independence. They convince clients that relying on a partner is weakness, rather than recognizing it as a normal, healthy aspect of intimate relationships. I was concerned that your therapist was pushing you toward an extreme that could damage your relationship. So what did you tell Duncan to do about it? Another glance between them. She suggested I find ways to remind you that we're a team, Duncan said, that you still needed my support, small things that would help you see that we work better together. What kind of small things? Dr. Westwood pulled open a drawer in the side table next to her chair and took out a binder, an actual 3-ring binder, dark blue, stuffed so full the rings could barely close. She set it on her lap. We've been documenting Duncan's progress quite extensively, she said, and there was this note of pride in her voice. His growth has been remarkable. The interventions we've planned, the strategies he's implemented, the patience he's shown, all of it has been in service of your healing and the health of your relationship. She looked at me over her glasses. Would you like to review some of the work he's done? I think it might help you understand how much he's been investing in your recovery. There was something in the way she said it that made me think she actually wanted me to see it, like she believed the binder would prove how dedicated Duncan had been, how much he cared. Yeah, I said. I'd really like to understand his perspective. Maybe if I saw everything he was trying to do, it would help me see things differently. Duncan's whole face changed. He looked almost hopeful. Really? You mean that? If you've been working this hard on our relationship for 8 months, I should at least know what you were trying to accomplish. Dr. Westwood smiled and handed the binder to Duncan. I think this represents real progress. Being willing to see his efforts even when you're hurt shows emotional maturity. Duncan took the binder like it was something precious. He held it against his chest for a second, then looked at me. Can we maybe meet for coffee later this week to talk about all this? I've wanted to show you these notes for months, but Dr. Westwood said to wait until you were ready to hear it. I nodded. Just send me copies so I can go through everything. That night, around 9 p.m., my phone started buzzing. Text after text after text. Duncan had photographed every single page of that binder, 97 pages total. He sent them all in one massive chain of images with a message at the end. I really hope this helps you see how much I love you and how hard I've been working to help us. I never stopped believing we could work through this together. I waited until I saw he'd gone offline, then I started going through the photos. I was sitting on my bed with my laptop open, downloading each image so I could zoom in on the handwritten parts. The first 10 pages or so were pretty basic. Session notes from 8 months ago. Duncan talking about how I'd started therapy, how I seemed sad a lot, how I was talking about Nathan more, how he wanted to be supportive but didn't know what to do. Dr. Westwood's notes were all encouragement. Things like, Duncan shows real empathy, and his desire to help her is admirable. But somewhere around page 15, the tone started to shift. There was an entry from about 5 months ago. Duncan had told Dr. Westwood that therapy was making me too independent, that I didn't seem to need him the way I used to. I was making decisions about my career without asking his opinion first. I'd gone to visit my friend for a weekend without checking if that was okay with him. I'd stopped asking him to help me with stuff like organizing my closet or planning my schedule. Dr. Westwood's response was highlighted in yellow marker. Create situations where she feels less capable. When she makes decisions independently, gently contradict her judgment. This helps rebuild healthy reliance and reminds her of partnership's value. In the margin, in Duncan's handwriting, trying this week. I felt nauseous. I zoomed in on that note, trying this week, like it was a homework assignment. I kept scrolling. 2 pages later, there was another entry. Duncan reported back that he'd questioned my decision to take on a new project at work, told me it seemed like too much stress, that maybe I should talk to my manager about it. I'd apparently gotten defensive, then later admitted I was worried about the workload and asked his advice. Dr. Westwood's note, excellent. She's beginning to seek his guidance again. Continue this approach. My hands were shaking. I remembered that conversation. I'd been so excited about that project, but when Duncan expressed concern, I'd started second-guessing myself. I'd felt stupid for taking it on. He'd helped me write an email to my boss about potentially reducing the scope. I'd thanked him for looking out for me. I put my phone down, walked to my kitchen, drank a glass of water. Then I went back and kept reading because I needed to see how deep this went. About 3 months ago, there was a whole session dedicated to my boundary about photos. I'd told Duncan I didn't want him posting pictures of me on social media without asking first. It made me anxious, having my image out there where I couldn't control it. It was tied to my social anxiety from the Nathan situation, the feeling of being watched and judged. Dr. Westwood's notes took up almost a full page. She wrote about how this was classic avoidance behavior stemming from social trauma, and that continued accommodation of this fear would only reinforce it. Her recommendation was crystal clear: post a photo without permission. When she reacts negatively, frame her response as controlling behavior and disproportionate anger. This creates cognitive dissonance that helps her recognize her reaction is the problem, not the trigger. Duncan's notes from the following session. Posted a pic of her at the gym. She got really upset, like really angry. I told her she was being controlling and that her anxiety was making her irrational, that normal couples share photos of each other and her rules were extreme. She cried and then apologized to me later that night, said she knew she was being difficult. Next to this, Dr. Westwood had written in red pen, "Excellent progress. She's beginning to self-correct." I had to close my eyes. I remembered that fight so clearly. I'd felt so guilty. I'd apologized over and over, told Duncan he was right, that I was being unreasonable. I'd felt crazy for being mad in the first place. I forced myself to keep going through the pages. It got worse. Duncan complaining that I was spending too much time with my college friends. Dr. Westwood suggesting he schedule things during times he knew I had plans with them, so I'd have to choose. Let her feel the natural consequence of divided attention, she'd written. Duncan talking about how I'd stopped asking him for help with certain things. Stuff I used to need him for, like filing my taxes or figuring out travel plans. Dr. Westwood's advice, offer unsolicited help. When she declines, point out mistakes she makes later. This reminds her that independence has costs. I found an entry where Duncan said I'd successfully done my taxes on my own for the first time. He sounded upset about it. Dr. Westwood's response, find the error, even a small one. Bring it to her attention gently, with concern, not criticism. This plants appropriate doubt. The next session, found a deduction she missed. Only like $200, but I showed her and explained how it could have caused problems. She seemed really embarrassed and asked me to check her return next year. I remembered that too. The shame I'd felt. How I'd decided I obviously couldn't handle it on my own. I was crying now, but I kept scrolling. I needed to see all of it. Then about 2 months ago, I found what I was looking for. The entry that made everything click into place. The header was in Dr. Westwood's handwriting. Final breakthrough intervention. High stakes exposure. Her notes. Duncan expressed frustration that previous interventions, while successful, haven't created the fundamental shift in her identity that we've been working toward. She continues to view herself primarily as a trauma survivor, rather than as a partner in an equal relationship. Discussed implementing a high-stakes exposure scenario that would force a crisis point. Wedding provides ideal opportunity due to emotional significance and social pressure. Inviting Nathan, the primary source of her trauma narrative, will create one of two outcomes. Either she faces him and realizes her fear was disproportionate, shattering her victim identity and allowing authentic healing, or she cannot cope and confirms that she's too damaged for the demands of marriage. Either outcome provides Duncan with crucial clarity about whether to proceed with this relationship. Below that, in Duncan's handwriting in the margin, she's going to lose it, LOL. I zoomed in on that line, read it 5 times. She's going to lose it, LOL. He knew exactly how I'd react. He'd planned it specifically to make me lose it, and he thought it was funny. This wasn't about helping me. This wasn't about exposure therapy or breaking through trauma. This was about engineering a situation where I'd either break down completely or prove I was too damaged to marry. I took screenshots of 3 specific pages. The one where he said therapy was making me too independent. The one about posting my photo and coaching me to think my anger was the problem. And the wedding one with she's going to lose it, LOL, written in Duncan's handwriting. Then I opened a text to Duncan. My hands were shaking so badly I had to retype it 3 times. Did you ever actually love me, or was I just a project you were trying to fix? I hit send at 11:47 p.m. My phone started ringing immediately. Duncan. I stared at it, watching it vibrate across my bed. I didn't pick up. He called again, 4 more times. Then the text started. Please pick up. You're misreading those notes. There's clinical context you don't understand. Dr. Westwood can explain what it all means. This isn't what it looks like, I promise. Please don't show anyone those notes. People won't understand without the full context. I'm begging you, please just talk to me. That second to last one told me everything I needed to know. He wasn't worried that I'd misunderstood. He was worried that other people would understand perfectly. I opened my email, started a new message, went to my sent folder and found Dr. Westwood's diagnosis email, then copied every single person who'd been CC'd. My parents, Duncan's parents, both sets of wedding party members, my aunt, Eloise, everyone the therapist had sent her assessment to. Subject line, Duncan's therapist diagnosed me with personality disorder. Here's what they actually spent 8 months planning. I attached all 97 pages of the session notes. Then I pasted in the 3 screenshots with a brief explanation of what each one showed and where to find them in the full document. I wrote, 2 days ago, Dr. Westwood sent many of you an email claiming I have borderline personality disorder based on my decision to cancel my wedding. I've attached the complete documentation of what she and Duncan actually spent 8 months planning. I'd especially recommend pages 34, 67, and 89, but the full context is important. Duncan was not trying to help me heal from trauma. He was systematically trying to make me dependent on him because my actual therapy was making me too independent for his comfort. The wedding prank was designed to either break me or confirm I was too damaged to marry. These are his words, his handwriting, his plans. I stared at the send button, my cursor hovering over it. This was going to blow up Duncan's entire life. Everyone would know what he'd done. His family, his friends, his groomsmen who'd helped plan the Nathan surprise. I thought about she's going to lose it, LOL. I thought about him coaching me to think my anger was irrational. I thought about him undermining every bit of progress I'd made in therapy. I hit send at 12:03 a.m. Then I turned off my phone and went to bed. When I woke up the next morning and turned my phone back on, I had 127 notifications, text messages, emails, missed calls. I made coffee first, then started going through them. Duncan's best man Jake had texted him, and Duncan had screenshotted it and sent it to me before I'd blocked him. Dude, I just read through all of those notes. The handwritten stuff, the she's going to lose it comment. I'm out. I don't want anything to do with this. Don't contact me again. His other groomsmen had sent similar messages, screenshots that Duncan must have forwarded before I cut him off completely. This is beyond messed up. I can't believe you did this to her. We're done, man. Duncan's mom had sent me an email at 6:47 a.m. with just the subject line, "Is this real?" When I opened it, the body was one sentence. "Please call me." I had no idea my son was capable of something like this. My college roommate had called 3 times and left a voicemail crying, apologizing for not seeing the signs, asking if I was okay. My brother sent a text at 7:15 a.m. "Holy shit, are you safe? Do you need me to come over?" Eloise sent a long message about how she felt sick that she'd given Duncan Nathan's information, that she'd had no idea what he was planning, that she should have questioned why he wanted it. But the messages from Duncan were the ones that made my stomach turn. He'd sent 43 texts before I'd blocked him. I could see the previews of the first few in my notifications. Everyone is turning on me. My mom won't stop calling. Jake says he never wants to see me again. You're ruining my life. I need you to fix this. At 6:47 p.m., exactly 12 hours after I'd sent the email, I heard a car in my parents' driveway. That stupid modified exhaust that Duncan had installed on his Mustang last year, the one that made it sound like an angry lawnmower. He thought it made the car sound powerful. I'd always thought it just sounded obnoxious. I heard my dad's footsteps to the door, then his voice firm. "She doesn't want to talk to you, Duncan. I need to talk to her." Duncan's voice was higher than normal, stressed. "She's sending these notes to everyone. She's telling lies about me. People think I'm some kind of monster. Those are your therapist's notes." My dad's voice was cold in a way I'd rarely heard, with your handwriting in the margins. "Your plans. How is that lying? It's out of context. You don't understand therapy language. Dr. Westwood can explain what it all actually means." I walked to the front door. My dad tried to wave me back, but I shook my head. I needed to do this myself. Duncan was standing on the porch. He looked terrible, worse than he had at Dr. Westwood's office. His hair was a mess, his eyes were bloodshot and puffy, and he was wearing the same wrinkled shirt from yesterday, like he'd been up all night. When he saw me, his face did this complicated thing where he seemed to cycle through relief, anger, and desperation in about 2 seconds. "You're ruining my life," he said. "Do you understand that? Jake won't talk to me. Neither will Tyler or Matt. My mom called me crying, asking me if I'm some kind of sociopath. My sister sent me a message saying she's ashamed to be related to me. You sent those notes to everyone we know." "You sent Dr. Westwood's diagnosis to everyone first," I said, keeping my voice even. "You tried to convince my family I was mentally ill. That was to help you, to get you the support you needed. You wrote 'she's going to lose it LOL' about inviting my bully to our wedding. Which part of that was trying to help me, Duncan?" His face crumpled. He actually started crying. Okay, listen. I need you to send a retraction email. Tell everyone you misunderstood the notes, that you were upset and not thinking clearly, that you took things out of context. No, please." He was almost begging now. "You're destroying my reputation. People think I'm abusive. They think I'm some kind of manipulator. Duncan, the notes literally show that you were. Dr. Westwood manipulated me." His voice shot up. "She's the therapist. She told me this was normal, that these were standard techniques. I didn't understand what I was doing." I pulled out my phone and played the recording from our session. His voice came through the speaker clear as day. "I invited friends over without telling you first. You'd get overwhelmed and I'd help you calm down. It showed you that you could handle things with my support." Duncan's face went completely white. "You recorded us? That's illegal." "It's actually not. Single-party consent state, but nice try." "You can't." He stopped, took a breath. Okay, look." His whole demeanor changed. The anger dropped away and he just looked broken. "You're right. I got scared when you started therapy. You were changing. You were more confident. You didn't need me for stuff anymore. You were making decisions without me, living your own life, and I thought if you kept getting more independent, you'd realize you didn't need me at all, that you could do better. I was terrified you'd leave me. So you tried to break me down? I was trying to maintain our connection." He was crying harder now. "Dr. Westwood said it was normal for relationships to have that dynamic, that partners need to need each other, that what I was feeling was just a natural desire for interdependence." She made it sound like I was being a good partner. I showed him my phone screen, the page with his handwritten notes next to Dr. Westwood's strategies. "Which parts did she force you to write, Duncan?" He looked at the notes, at his own handwriting. His mouth opened, but nothing came out. "That's what I thought," I said. "I'm filing a formal complaint with the state licensing board tomorrow, against Dr. Westwood, for unethical practice, and you're named in it as an active participant in her violations." "You can't do that." His voice was flat. "That will completely destroy my reputation. Everyone will know. It'll be on record that I was part of this." "Duncan, that's what the documentation shows. That's what you were. These were therapeutic techniques. She's a licensed therapist with decades of experience. She told me this was helping you. You wrote 'she's going to lose it LOL' about triggering my trauma at our wedding. Does that sound like therapy to you? Or does that sound like you thought breaking me down was funny?" He reached for my arm. Not roughly, but my dad stepped forward immediately and Duncan pulled back. "If you file that complaint, I'll tell everyone you're doing this to be vindictive," he said, and his voice had gone cold now. "I'll make sure everyone knows you're just trying to hurt me because you're angry, that you're twisting therapeutic notes to make me look bad. I only sent the notes to people Dr. Westwood already contacted with her diagnosis of me," I said. "The same people you tried to convince I was mentally unstable. I'm just correcting the record with actual documentation. I'll post my side publicly. I'll tell everyone you're lying. If you contact me again, I I post everything publicly myself. Every single page, every screenshot, every recording. I'll let everyone who wasn't on that email chain see exactly what you did. Let them decide for themselves who's telling the truth. His expression shifted from angry to something almost scared. You wouldn't. Try me. We stood there staring at each other. My dad's hand was on the door, ready to close it. Duncan looked at me one more time, his face doing that complicated thing again where I couldn't tell if he was furious or devastated or both. This is a huge mistake, he finally said. You're going to regret this. Leave, my dad said. Now, don't come back. Duncan turned and walked back to his car. The exhaust was loud enough that I could hear it 3 blocks away. I went back inside. My mom was standing in the kitchen, and when she saw me, she just opened her arms. I walked into the hug and finally let myself cry. 3 weeks later, I got an official letter from the State Board of Behavioral Health Examiners. They were opening a formal investigation into Dr. Westwood based on my complaint. They requested all documentation, which I provided. The 97 pages of notes, the recording from our session, the emails, the texts, everything. The letter said the investigation could take several months, but that they were treating it as a priority case due to the nature of the allegations. That same afternoon, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost didn't open it, but something made me check. It was from Duncan. You ruined my life over a joke. I read it in the preview, didn't open the actual message, just deleted it and blocked the number. I never heard from him again.